So why do we do it? Why we feel we should, and how we go about doing it. Okay, these aren't nice words. There's actually some genuine business imperative behind this. We're only successful if you are. We don't sell to the public, it's all trade. So if you don't make it, we don't either. So we're motivated by a real business need to provide you with something that should work for you and help you. There's other prizes going on, second place, done. Yeah, pricing is a major competitive issue. We see it all the time. We're ideally placed to make it happen, and it's worth our investment. What do those sorts of things mean? Okay, there's a persistent mindset with people that the big chains have this huge price advantage over you, and that you're competing with something that's impossible to win against. It's absolutely not true. It's absolutely not true. Their purchasing advantage is nowhere near what you think it is. What they are able to do is to promote loss leaders, and that's what you're seeing, the consequence of loss leaders. In overall terms, they do not have major purchasing advantage. We see that price, people can generally talk about price being the key determinant, the one thing that makes people decide what they want to buy, whether they will or won't. Yet, we know that people will be prepared quite easily to pay more for something if it's better. The issue is what is better? Yeah, you go on Amazon, you want next day delivery rather than standard delivery. Amazon don't come to you and say, oh yeah, we'll do next day delivery for you, in actual fact we'll do it for less. They charge you a premium. Welcome, come in, grab a seat. Yeah? They'll charge you a premium for it. People expect to pay more for extra things because it's better. And this general notion that price competition only means being cheap, which completely denies you of anything to do with what you're actually worth and how good you are. And I see stuff around people setting prices for sure, but not positioning them. People saying to me things like, you know, and I say, well, how do you set your prices? Oh, well, I charge what I think it's worth. Not even looking outside. Yeah, what other people are charging. I see people charging, applying a blanket cost plus approach. Twice it's happened to me now, talking to people about the retail price comparison. You haven't quite completed it. Can I help you to complete it? Oh, just take the remaining items, take your sale prices to me and add 20%. Two things about that. Blanket cost approach, well, different margins apply to different products, but saying 20%. It's a criminally low margin, that is tough business. And similarly, yeah, matching the internet. Well, yeah, I look at prices and I go and look at what online retailers are charging and their price for them. Again, completely forgetting the fact that the internet is serving an entirely different market. Gather competitor intelligence? No, thank you very much. Yeah, it's only me here. I can't spare the time to go out and collect other people's prices. It's only me here, and absolutely, I understand that. I know that's true. I ran a small business myself. I know that the tensions that you're under. It was just me and one other guy in my business, and I found it very difficult to go away and do things like E&I, networking, and so on. But I did it. Snoop, spy, no way. There's this kind of feeling that perhaps it's a bit covert. Come in. There's some seats over this side. It's all right. Come in. It's kind of underhand. It's something that's not quite respectable to do. But let me tell you something. Mystery shopping, going and looking at other people's prices, is a practice that's as old as the hills. That's entirely respectable. And if you're thinking like that, you're not actually thinking about the right way. There's nothing wrong in being curious. Yeah? If somebody says to you, what are you doing in my shop? The answer is, well, I heard you've got a reputation, but you're quite good here. I wanted to come and just find out how well you do things. Likely you'll have a decent conversation with the person. But what would I do with that information anyway? So I get this pricing information, I find out about this other business. What am I going to do? Because see, part of the issue is if you find out other people's prices, how does that actually help you set yours? Yeah? If they're higher, do you raise them? And if they're lower, you drop them. And what about if they're all around you? What do you do then? And how do you know how good those prices are? And how do you know how well those prices are actually performing for that retailer that you might have visited? You don't. Yeah, one of the main reasons for us doing the price comparison is we hear you talking about price all the time. You get posts on the forum. Okay, it's not a consistent thread, but it comes up regularly. People ask what you're charging for. We get really flattered. People literally ask us, well, what should we be selling this at? Typically we're going to get a new line. Yeah? What's the recommended retail price? Thank you, fabulous position to put us in, but also a position kind of we don't really want to be in, because who is it our place? What is it our place to tell you what you should be charging? We don't know your local market. But if anything was a driver for doing this, that was probably the major item, because what better way to tell you what kinds of prices you should be charging by asking everybody else what they're actually charging now, and the satisfaction they're getting. And price is an issue, it always comes up when I visit people. We're ideally placed to make it happen. Clearly, you're buying from us all the time, you know what you're buying, you've got all that record. We're a common contact for thousands of you through the web, and it fits our ethos. We have to do everything we can to make you successful, because we will only be the same if we do that. And on the back of that, it's worth our investment. I'm not going to go through it all, but we do quite a large amount of work to make this happen. We developed a complete web tool to capture the data. I go through the process of managing all the invites, all the email letters, following up with people as the closing date approaches and they've only done 55 or 60 of the answers that are needed, because if they don't complete, they won't get any data at all. And reminding them of that fact and helping them get it completed, all the way through to providing individualised reports. Once you've completed the price comparison, there's an individualised report that applies to you within the mix of everybody else, and what that means for your pricing. One-to-one support. If anyone wants to talk about their data, I'm here. It's free. It's available. All you've got to do is ask. And we've done things as well. Come in. There's some seats over this side. We've done some things to improve the comparison, to make it of even more use to you than before. And this time around we included some services, because people had said, why don't you include some services? Which was a more difficult question to answer than you might think, because BC Health Check, what is a BC Health Check? Different people do things in different ways. So we've started off with some things that we know we can hang our hat on. And that's what we saw in the survey. And now we actually provide a workshop. So people who have taken part, people who haven't necessarily taken part, can come along and find out how to really get an understanding of the data and the information. And just why come to a workshop? Because we go through in detail what the report contains. You get confronted with this huge spreadsheet of information, and I'll help you understand what that is. But most importantly, some actual hands-on practice using real information, anonymised, not yours, real information to look at price-setting examples. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. 60 generic lines. Okay, they're more categories of products than individual specific products. They don't have to be from Target. It doesn't matter to us. We're just interested in what products you're selling. Remember, I said I was product agnostic. I am. And the 5 basic services. And then quite simply, do you or don't you do it? What do you charge? It's inclusive of VAT, because we have to deal with limited companies and sole traders at the same time, so we've got to use a common language. An indication of sales. We can't do that by how many units do you sell, because that will mean you either having to look through your records or possibly even creating records and going through the time to do that. And it wouldn't be appropriate for us to ask how much do you sell either. That's private confidential information in pound terms that we sell. So we do it through this proxy called sales satisfaction, and that's what we use. We aim for 100 customers-ish each time, and that's what we've achieved. We do the comparison with the big chains, and yeah, remember this, it's important. The comparison with the big chains is done using their lowest online price, which means the comparison is very harsh. It's very tight. So, what did the comparison find? You've listed the big chains. Where do you stand? What are the key movers? What do we see in terms of product popularity? Some real insight into the truth about what we call price elasticity. That's the economics terms, or to you and me, the relationship between price and sales. And some overall suggestions for what you might consider stocking based on the information we found. Remember, if you took part individually, you get a far better breakdown of this. We can give you some insight. So here we go, the basket comparison. Those are the businesses that the comparison, the large multiples where the comparison was made. And those are the percentages. This is how much better you are than them, how much better your basket price is than those businesses last time. I haven't missed that. Yeah, I will tell you. Oh, by the way, yes, I just made that point again. Online prices are often lower than those in store. So remember, these figures probably understate your advantage. What do we find? Some changes. Some ups, some downs. A bit of closure in the gap between you and PC World. But look at the differences going on with Staples and the others. In particular, look at that one with Tesco. It's really interesting. Does that drop with PC World spell trouble? Are they screwing down on you really tight and hard? It's very difficult to tell, to be honest. But we'd like to think it could be because you've been raising prices. And the reason for that is simple. A significant number of people who took part in the last comparison took part in the second. And they were picked up from the last comparison that there was opportunity to raise their prices. Secondly, could it be the impact of mentoring that's getting through? Okay, I don't see that much those many customers, I should say. It would be wrong of me to suggest that one individual could impact the amount of business that we do, but there are a number of businesses there who've all consented to be listed, who I've worked with, and have all increased prices as a result. Could it be the influence of the blog? Price is so central to everything that you do that it appears time and again in things that I blog, but some of the major titles that represent material that relates to price and pricing are there. Maybe the message is getting through from that point of view. But let me ask you a question. Why is price important? Why is price really important? What does it do? What is it for? Why does it matter? Any thoughts?
Value.
Value.
Putting value on the product.
Putting value on the product. Okay, so, right. Yep. Any other thoughts?
Profit.
Profit. Okay. Yeah, it's about profit too.
Appealing to customers.
Sorry?
Appealing to customers.
Appealing to customers. Yeah. Okay. Let's think about the dangers of wrong pricing. Put it that way. Yeah, if your price is seen to be fair, that it's within the range or there or thereabouts, then that's something that will lead to good customer. Your reputation is one as a business offering fair value and fair prices. But there comes a point as that price is increased where suddenly people go, hey, hang on, that's a bit much. That's becoming, my words, a rip-off. Yeah? Becoming a bit expensive. And that will lead to some loss of customer. Fair to say. There also comes a point in the other direction where you think, that's getting a bit cheap. I bought this for £10. Now, if I found it on the web for 75p, given how this needs to perform for me today, I'd be thinking, can I rely on that? Or will it break down mid-session just when I don't want it to? No, I'm not prepared to pay 75p. I want to pay a little bit more for something that I think will perform. So a lot of things that relate to value, but also relate to reputation, your reputation. But as you said at the back, profit plays a part in this as well, and profit shouldn't be forgotten. And what I want to introduce to you now is a very simple concept, that if you're pricing even very slightly below what you could, you're actually putting an enormous burden on your business, a surprisingly large burden on your business. How price and sales really work. Okay, this is this price elasticity stuff. So if you look at price, and if you look at sales, what would you expect as a relationship? Well, as price decreases, volume goes up. That's the standard sort of supply and demand way of looking at the world. Yeah? And all we put in there, all I put in there is simply for every 1% decrease in price, there's a 1% increase in sales. What did we find doing the surveys? Interesting. So in October, we found that in actual fact the relationship between price and increased or decreased satisfaction is actually very slight. But something like 15% below the average price only produced around about 3% increased sales. But in actual fact, this elasticity is nowhere near as tight as you might have thought. All right, all very well, but what about the second time round? Well, in June, we found that. Yeah. Now, you know, we can argue about which is right and which is wrong. I don't think that's actually the point I want to make here. Two sets of surveys done in two different periods show that the relationship between price and sales is pretty much flat, within reasonable boundaries. Yes, of course, if your price increases or decreases were particularly large, other things would happen. But within the ranges that we identified, those are the relationships we've set. But why? Why does price and sales behave like that, given the sector that you're in, given IT products? What is it about what you do that means price and sales are not related like you might expect them to be? In actual fact, more resilient than you might expect them to be. Any ideas?
Customer service.
Service, yeah.
Services,
Value added.
value added. And IT itself is not a commodity. Many other things affect customers' perceived value. Buyers need trust, excuse me, trust that they're getting unbiased advice, and they need reassurance and confidence that they're making the right decision. Yes, there are people out there who don't need that. Yes, there are people that are quite happy to go into a supermarket and buy a computer off the shelf. But I would argue that that's not the majority. The majority of people do want to talk to somebody and have some reassurance that they're actually spending their money wisely. That's why price and sales don't work quite the same way that you might expect. Keen-eyed amongst you will realise that it's the wrong way around. So, key movers. What have we seen? Satisfaction increasing on things like batteries and books, amongst everything else. Not much of a difference, to be honest. And falling, particularly on things like the Blu-ray rewriter, other end-of-life items. Nothing that really stands out. Britain's favourite meal, that's why I put it there as popularity. So, what about popularity? Well, unfortunately, no surprises. You stock what we'd expect you to stock. Mice, keyboards, USBs, wireless adapters, and so on. And the least stocked items are these things, the other little bits and pieces that we do, which is interesting. But you might ask the question, why do we bother? Why are we stocking everyday essentials? Why do we do
To get frequent customers.
get frequent customers?
To
Yeah.
keep in demand.
Sorry,
To keep fresh in demand.
keep freshening the demand. Yeah.
Impulse buys.
Sorry,
Impulse buys.
impulse buys.
Footfall.
Footfall.
Don't
Great.
Don't need to go anywhere else.
Don't need to go anywhere else. Yeah, they're all little things. They're not of much value. And they're not going to make us a fortune either. They won't make you a fortune. But yeah, they give other reasons for people to drop in. Yeah? And they do these two things that you should always be striving to do, which is turn every visitor into a customer, making every visit pay. Because you'd be surprised when you actually look into the number of people who walk through your door versus the actual number of people who make a purchase. Typically when I work with businesses on that, it's not as high as people say it is. They usually come back and say, oh, the vast majority, 70, maybe 80%. We do some data analysis and it usually drops to perhaps 40 to 60%. So there's a considerable amount of business there that they're not making money from. Now, I'm not suggesting that you're going to make a fortune off the back of these products, but you've got a reason to start a relationship. They've made a purchase, they bought from you. But they won't sell themselves. Okay, these items need promoting. So, visible, highly visible promotions in your windows, on your walls, get a bit feisty, make a point that you are now stocking, for the sake of argument, batteries. Yeah? You can do that with any of the other products as well. You need to merchandise these items. In other words, you need to make it obvious that you've got them in the shop. You need to make a display out of them. not just have them on the shelves somewhere. And yeah, convenience purchases, place them near the till. Every buying customer goes through two places when they come into the shop, the door and the till. And if they've come to the till, you've got all those things there, they've got a chance to see them, for you to mention them, and for them to potentially buy. And not, as we've seen with some customers, on display but not priced, and worst of all, actually behind the counter. Yeah? Your everyday essentials don't sell for me. Oh right, how are you merchandising them? Well, I've got them behind the counter. No wonder nobody knows they're there. So yeah, it's all about your reputation. More reasons to get through the door. Yeah? I'll nip in there, they'll probably have it, or if they haven't, they'll probably be able to get it for them. That's where you're trying to position yourself. Giving more reasons for them to come in. And our dear old free books. The dummies books. Yeah, they don't shift because people don't, remember I mentioned this term earlier, I think, consideration. People don't think of you as a bookshop. So you can't just put them on the shelves and behave like a bookshop. Yeah? People go to bookshops to buy books, so you have to think differently about how you're going to go about selling them. The basics still apply. You need to promote the fact you've got dummies books in the shops, if that's what you do. You need a poster in the window that talks to them, for example. You need to merchandise them, yeah, an obvious display of those books in the shop. Yeah? If you've got a shop where you can walk directly from the door to the counter without anything being in the way, then people won't look around themselves. You have to lay out your shop so that you get people to start looking about. That's the art of merchandising. And think about bundling. Every time you offer somebody advice, make sure you mention the relevant book. There's some extra advice on that. We spoke about websites and stuff. I gave you some hints and tips. You've got one of these dummies books now as well. You might consider. What have you. Or you might go a little bit further. Here's an actual example from another room, a company called Kim UK over in Hull. It's not about the detail of what's in the, whether the computers are right or wrong, what the price is. It's how they've gone about doing it. And I think this is a really fantastic example. First and foremost, it's a targeted offer. You know? They read one of my blogs that speaks about thinking about the footfall that's outside your door every day. They realised that right across from them, because they're in a shopping arcade, or they were in a shopping arcade, was a hairdresser. A hairdresser is mainly frequented by OAPs. What could they do? Well, immediately, Silver Surfers. How can we help you? Well, you need more than just products, don't you? Because you're Silver Surfers. You need some advice. You might not have been on the internet before. So they made a bundle which included a Windows dummies book and an hour's worth of free tuition. So not only were they selling the product directly, it was a targeted offer that included a bundle of products and services that really amplify their worth and justify the price. Now, fantastic example. There's probably many, many others of these that you could think of. So, stocking suggestions. Wake up. So these are items overall where we think there's opportunity. Yeah, mobile dongles, broadband dongles. Satisfaction 3.25. 3 on the satisfaction scale, which works from 1 to 5. If I remember rightly, 3 is okay. It's a perfectly decent seller. In fact, it's slightly above 3.25. Perfectly decent seller, no reason to not consider it. Yet, only 55% of people who responded said that they stocked it. Clearly there's people missing out on opportunity. Inks, 4.1 satisfaction. It's about the highest that there was in the survey. Tremendously satisfied. No wonder you buy them at relatively low price and make quite a good margin. No. There's nothing wrong with that because that's the going rate. But at the same time, still only 3/4 of customers are stocking them. So people are missing out on a massive opportunity to make, okay, absolute sums might not be good money, but it's another reason to get people coming in the door. Come and buy my ink.